Welcome to the BC Wine Show. I'm Marnie Martin with Vista Wine Group, and I'm interviewing some of BC's top, most successful winemakers and industry pros on how and why they do what they do and what they're up to next. So grab yourself a glass of wine, and I'll see you on the inside.
My guest today is the beautiful Daiya Anderson from Origin Wines. Origin Winery opened in the summer of 2017 after years of growing grapes and searching for the perfect location of their dreams, which they found right up on the Naramata Bench in Penticton BC. Welcome, Daiya, to the BC Wine Show. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to sit and have a conversation with you today.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here too. I love to have the opportunity to share information with generally BC residents, but elsewhere too. So thanks.
Awesome. And I know it's been a while since we saw each other. It's been probably about a year or something like that since I've been out that direction. So hopefully soon again.
Yeah,
but
that would be great.
Nice to see you. Yeah, it's nice to see your face for sure. So let's get started. There's so many good things for us to talk about. I know you guys are probably one of the younger wineries. And so maybe let's talk about how you got started. And I know there's a little bit of a story with the name Origin. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, okay. That always goes back to me. Where do I begin? At the very beginning, I'm from Oliver. So I grew up on road number 9, which is just below Black Sage Road. And that is of the two AGAs in Oliver, Black Sage Road and Golden Mile, somewhat right in between. And I grew up in an orchard. My dad had an orchard and my grandpa had an orchard as well. And so really I'm a farmer at heart. My first job was working at my grandpa's fruit stand, and you can still see it. It's not open anymore, but it was called the Cherry Grove Fruit Stand, and it's right on Highway 97, right beside CC and Sellers now. So as a child, I was just really, my job was to do chores in order to make enough money to hop on my bicycle and go get some candy at the grocery store. Nothing like that ever crossed my mind that I would be doing this one day, which is crazy that it's come full circle to that. But when I grew up, it was like, let's get out of Dodge. This is such a small town, go to school, move to the city. I had all those feelings as a teenager. So when I finished school in Kelowna, I moved to Penticton for a year and a half to work here and make enough money to move to Vancouver. In the meantime, I actually met Blake, my husband, who we've now been together. We were trying to calculate this the other day. I think it's 16 and a half years, but it's in and around that range. And we've been married for 12. So yeah, so while I was working here, I was working at a restaurant, and I got invited to a vineyard party, and I had no idea what that was, but I got there, and there's a lot of wine, there was a lot of beer, and I met the owner, and he was a friend of the person who invited me, and he said, "Oh, do you want a beer?" And I said, "Well, I'm kind of interested in wine," and I was like 20 at that time. So he said, "Wine? My dad has a wine cellar. Do you want to check it out?" I'm like, okay, well, sure. I thought, I don't want to take anything I shouldn't, but sure, like that sounds pretty cool. I don't know anything about wine. So we were both at that stage where we liked wine. His parents were kind of mid-planting their vineyard, which is now Moraine Winery down the road from us. It's only about 5 minutes away. Wow. And so we got a really good opportunity to try some cool stuff early on. And then, we were both working though in the city in Vancouver. So I was working with Earl's Restaurants. I worked with them for 14 years. And then he's working in the film industry, which is primarily in Vancouver. But we always loved wine from then on, and we're focused on learning about it and kind of just trying to figure out how this could become a part of our life. And so we would go around in circles all the time and say, like, we'd love to live back in the Okanagan, but how will we do this? Neither of our jobs were super transferable. And then we kept thinking, a winery is impossible and all those things. And eventually, after so many times of driving back here and just coming down into the valley and saying, this feels like home, this is home, we said, okay, well, we have to actually make a plan, because if we want to be here, we probably can't bring our jobs with us. So we should just create some jobs and do what we want. So from then we decided to make a plan. And so we bought a vineyard. We actually bought a piece of land in Culloden, so just south of Penticton.
Yeah.
And it's a great little vineyard spot. There's tons of vineyards around there. I don't know if you've driven around that area before.
I don't think so.
Okay, but it's between Penticton and OK Falls. So there's a bunch of fruit stands on the highway, and then if you head left down towards the lake, I mean, it doesn't even really, you don't even know it's called Culloden, but that's what it is. It's a little township. And we got land there because that's what we could afford at the time. And we thought, the industry is so burgeoning. There's so many vineyards in this area. Maybe this will become somewhere where more wineries are going to be installed for touring and all that. And
for sure.
So that was in 2010. And in 2010, what we decided was we would plant a vineyard there, and then we would take care of it on our extra time on the weekends while we were working in Vancouver.
Wow, that sounds like a lofty endeavor.
Yes, it was very, very tricky. So we had a few years so between 2012 when we planted it and 2015 when we moved back, we traveled back and forth from Vancouver, anywhere between 30 to 42 times a year to make that work. So that was pretty crazy. Wow. And then we thought, okay, Culloden is a lovely place to grow certain grapes, but not a lot of new wineries were going in at the time. So we didn't see it being like a super, super touring area for a while. And then we've always loved Naramata Bench because Blake grew up here. So we would just go for a drive along here all the time and be like, oh, this would be so great. This would be so nice. But we don't have the money. So we were driving along, and then one day his parents decided they had lived here and then they retired to Arizona. They sold their house in Arizona and came back for the summer and said, we'd really love to live back here. So we were like, well, we'd really love to open a winery over on the bench too. Maybe we could just, find a place that would work for us together. So that's what ended up working at the end of the day. They spend half their year here helping us hugely. Aaron does most of the vineyard work at this property. Blake and I do it in Culloden, and Aaron's a master gardener, so he's the reason the gardens look so beautiful. And Pat's always out helping, so it's a complete family endeavor that way. So we found the property in 2015, planted the vineyard in 2016, opened for the very first year in 2017 in July in the middle of the summer.
Wow.
And that's just, it feels like a whirlwind. Like it really took a decade, but at the same time, it feels like no time at all. So
yeah. Well, that is a fairly young winery for, considering how long some of them have been over on the bench and how long, properties have been building up their portfolios and, that's great.
It is. I mean, we're right below us is Hillside Winery, and they're the oldest on the bench. So we're one of the youngest. They're one of the oldest. It's cool, but I mean, relatively, none of them are that old. So it's I think it's good for everyone to bring more industry here.
Yeah, awesome. So obviously, this is a work in progress, and you guys have been evolving over the last 3 years, and now we're into 2020. Obviously, we've got some new circumstances with COVID going on and whatnot.
Yes.
And things are shifting a little bit. So one of my questions is going to be what's new at the winery, but let's maybe take it in a two-step. So what's new? Maybe how are you guys navigating COVID, and then what's going to be new coming up for the new season of 2020?
Right. So pending that everything moves forward as planned, let's say, one of the things we did right away was just try to figure out a way to pivot the business that makes sense for customers so that we could retain customers while the COVID was happening, especially right in the beginning. So we really tried to take our business online quite a bit more, which is something we hadn't really done before because we were relying on the tasting room and relying on hospitality sales, and that was all going great. But I was listening to a podcast and it was a business podcast, and someone was saying in it, if you say you're doing social media marketing and then you suddenly disappear, right now, people might just think you're gone, you know, like they might actually just think you don't have a business anymore. So work hard to keep that going and find a way to pivot your business. So I was busting my butt working on the website almost every day, adding different things. We've had like online deliveries to your door added. We do a Friday wine club where you can get wine every second Friday or every like the first Friday of every month delivered to your door around the valley. We did these Mother's Day picnic baskets for locals that we delivered with a couple of companies. We paired with the Naramata Chocolate Company and the Poplar Grove Cheesery, which is just down the road from us. So that's been interesting because even though our sales have gone down, the work I think has gone up.
Yes, I can imagine.
To just survive, really. Yeah. But it all is a bunch of learning too. So there's a lot of benefits to just finding a way.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that you're partnering with local companies. I think sometimes out of strange circumstances, we find a newly found creativity that we didn't know, and all kinds of different ideas are born from that. So it's interesting to watch all the different wineries kind of shifting and, zigging and zagging through the process of this, and yet some really great things are coming out of it. And I think that's partly why this show came to be, is because it's just one of those things I can't get out with the people quite as much anymore, so this is my way of still connecting with them and bringing you guys to the consumers. So yeah, it's good.
Well, thank you. Everything helps, and also I think it's not like we're any less interested in talking about wine or drinking wine or experiencing new wine. It's just more like how can we do that? So yeah.
Exactly. Now I know you guys have some really great new releases coming out this year, things that you haven't ever released before. So let's talk about those, because that's really exciting.
Sure. Okay, so we have 2 new releases we've just sent out for the spring here, and that is our Malbec Rosé and our Via Viognier. And then in the fall, we'll actually be releasing our very first 2 reserves after a decade of this. Is a 100% Malbec and 100% Syrah. So maybe we'll start with the Viognier and the Malbec Rosé, if that works for you.
Sure.
So the Viognier actually is planted on our property where the vineyard is. So if you come to it, you can see it. The first block is Syrah. The second block is Viognier. And we do that because we co-ferment the Viognier skins with our Syrah as well. But we get really, really good heat units on this property. So we can ripen the Viognier and get that really beautiful peaches and cream and honeysuckle that is what you really want in a Viognier. So that is really exciting for me because I love Viognier. I like it with those flavors. I love it with a nice pop of acid when it's hot outside. And so that's really fun. And so we've released that now to our wine club first and now to everyone else. And then the Rosé, the block just past the Viognier is Malbec. And with Malbec, actually, we have enough heat units, but because it is a later ripener in the season, it's complementary sometimes to pull a little bit of fruit off earlier, turn that into rosé, and then help those later grapes that are left ripen for your reds. So there's lots of different ways to do it, but that's one way to do it. And so we have just a really zesty, very lime citrus rhubarb Malbec. It's this beautiful pink color, and it's just perfect for summer. So those are 2 really small lots just to test it out this year and see how that goes. And
that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
That's one of really my favorites. I love the tart sort of citrusy rhubarb sort of style rosés, but you don't see a lot of single varietal Malbec rosé. So that's quite unique.
Yeah, and that's another thing is because there's so much diversity now in the Okanagan, I think you really do have to work on having something that's unique and not just have the same profile as everyone else, because there's so many choices now. So yeah, absolutely. And for myself and Blake, we love dry wine. We like zesty, high acid whites in the summer, and we like our bolder reds. So as most people would probably say, you're going to try to make what you like, and we definitely do that. So yeah.
Awesome. That's so great. That sounds like great. So tell us about the reserves and how'd that come to be?
Yeah, the reserves, really what we wanted to do is we wanted to wait until we had at least a 2-year rollover program for all of our mainstream wines. And we really focused on that first because they're very approachable in terms of pricing, and we wanted to build the market around that and not just launch something that is super expensive right away. Secondly, we also needed to make sure both vineyards were online and in full production. So that takes, 4 to 5 years at least, and then another 3 to 4 years before you can release those wines. So it does. It might feel like a decade is a long time, but it isn't at the end of the day when it comes to wine.
Yes.
So those wines are very small batch. They're only 50 cases each. They'll be released to our wine club members first. Then we're actually going to have a long table dinner in the vineyard in September to release each one of them to the public. And then if there's any left, then we'll release that to everyone else. But we've got a 100% French barreled Syrah. And again, it's co-fermented with the Viognier skins that are grown right beside it. So you've got that beautiful, beautiful color from it and the gorgeous aroma. And I think I just didn't want to worry about releasing them early for any reason because they're not our main set of wines. We don't need to have them all the time. I just thought, let's just wait until we think it's the right time. So we're going to bottle both of those in a couple of weeks and then let them sit in the bottle for a few months and then release them in September. So I love the Syrah because walking through the vineyard, and if you come in September, you can walk through the Syrah, pick a berry without even tasting it, smell it, and you get that like crazy pepper smell that you get on Syrah sometimes because of the type of French clone it is. And it's so you just know like, okay, this is so close to being ready. We're going to make wine out of this soon. That's the exciting part. So for me, this is just like the full fruition of all that work for every season to really make sure we can have a beautiful grape that can make the wine beautiful. And then again, it's a little bit different in that we spend the most money and 100% new oak and our best barrels on these wines. So often that's the reason, is that the vineyard work takes more time and more labor to get that quality that we're looking for, and then years in barrel as well. So it all takes more work to get a wine like that really at the end of the day. So we've got the Syrah, and then we've got the Malbec, which is just a gorgeous black, juicy, dark fruit Malbec, and it's full of flavor. But again, for me, it's not sweet. So I know some Malbecs around the world are trending towards that style of being sweeter because sweetness in food, even especially, is very in. But I like our bigger, bolder wines on the drier side. So that's what you're going to get. And then that means it's quite ageable too. So you've got some good acid, bold tannins, lots of fruit flavor, but it's on the drier side. So
fantastic. Yes, I can see your passion. It's really lovely when you see somebody get very excited viscerally about what they do. And it's, no, that's amazing because that shows that you really, really love what you do. And I think it shows through in the wines too, because obviously, I'm a big fan of your wines. So if you have not had a chance to try Origin wines, we're working to get them to the island. And of course, they are in some stores all over the Okanagan. So if you haven't seen them before, definitely look for them or ask for them. And I will put a link in the video for you to check out their website and find out all the different wines that they produce as well. So while we're on that topic, let's talk. I know keto's kind of a big thing right now, and everybody's talking about keto-friendly wines and what that actually means. And so let's just talk a little bit about what that means. I think keto-friendly is somewhere in the less than 4 grams per liter of residual sugar. So how does that work in your vineyard, and which wines of yours would fall into that category?
Yeah, it's a funny thing because with keto and sugar, we don't label alcohol the same way we do with, say, a box of crackers, right? So when you're looking at the sugar on the box, you can see X grams per portion. We don't have that for labeling requirements on wine, but if the wine is dry, then it has to be between 0 to 2 grams per liter or 2 to 4. So fully dry is 0 to 2 and off dry is 2 to 4. So all of our wines except for the Rosé and the Gewürztraminer are under 2 grams per liter. And what that means is they are keto friendly. You can have 1 or 2 or so glasses and be safe. And actually, I've tested it out myself. I've done the keto myself for 2 weeks and made sure like I'm in keto, checking the strips every day and having a glass of wine, and it doesn't kick you out. So I think the thing that you just want to be careful of is, are you sure that your wine is considered on the dry scale dry? And that means 0 to 2 grams per liter, basically. So anything 2 and under, you're very, very safe. You're not going to kick yourself out. So yeah,
That's great.
and you can't always tell by the taste, right? Because some wines can be dry tasting but have quite a bit of sweetness in them, and deceivingly, and vice versa. So I think if you're curious, and I always look for that for myself on social media too, if anyone has a question about a certain wine or wines that we have, then I know all the grams per liter for each one of them, and we have it posted as well in the winery. So we're happy to answer that, because I think a lot of people are really taking that into consideration now.
Yeah, and it's really confusing, I think, for the consumer, and even for me, being on the front lines and doing tastings for so many different wineries. So often, if I don't have the actual paperwork on it, I can taste a wine and it's really dry, but when I actually get the grams per liter, it's appalling sometimes, and it's so deceiving from your taste buds to what's actually going on in the glass. So it is one of those things that's good to ask the questions. And I think there's a lot more keto-friendly wines than we actually thought. But now that we're having the conversation, people can actually, you know, have a little bit more of a knowledge when they go in to purchase something and get something that they know is going to work for them.
It's true. And one of the main reasons for that too, just in case anybody is curious, is when you have sugar, it's one part of the flavor profile, but acid is also a very big part in wine. So if you have a very high acid wine, you can actually have quite a bit of sugar in it as well without tasting the sugar. So that's where it comes in, is that the higher the acid, you can add more sugar without feeling like it's sweet at all, but it is. So yeah, asking the professional, making a call, totally worth it if you're thinking about keto.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for that information. That's really great. And it's good that you've tested it out yourself. So that's even better. So tell us what, I mean, I've been up to the winery, and it's a beautiful property with a beautiful view. And I know you guys are doing some great things up there, but what can the visitor expect when they come up to the winery to do a tasting? Do you do tours? What other kinds of things do you offer up there for the consumer?
Yeah, great question. So we are one of the wineries that has what's called a picnic area. But basically what that means is when you drive up, you're going to drive up a long driveway where you start to see the lake view landscape. And you'll be looking towards Penticton. You'll be able to see the Penticton Lakeshore, and then an area which is called Munson Mountain. And it really just looks a little bit like Tuscany. It's like these beautiful rolling hills with gorgeous vineyards, especially right now while it's so green. And then you'll see a big lawn and a deck in front of the winery, and then the winery room itself. So depending on the time of year, some people, when it's hot outside, would prefer to stay inside at the tasting bar and taste, but you're welcome to sit at any of the picnic tables, under the hazelnut trees, out on the deck that you see. And we're really casual in that sense. Due to the circumstances right now, we are seating tables to make sure that no one sits at a table that hasn't been sanitized. But, you know, to make sure that we're following all those protocols, we still want it to feel comfortable and friendly. And because it's essentially just a really big lawn with a lake view and then the vineyard on the side, it still feels pretty casual and relaxing, and everyone is very far away from each other. So there's not really a worry about that either. So when you come up, you can do a tasting, you can order a bottle of wine and sit on the picnic table that you like and have that, take the rest home with you. You can book a picnic package if you want, and then you can have a picnic basket delivered to your table with salts, jellies, cheeses, chocolates, and charcuterie that's all done locally. So we're trying to keep it simple and casual, but also to just be able to, for you to cater the experience that you'd like to have up here. So it's really nice to see it starting to develop now after a few years. So yeah.
Wonderful. Now I know you have a little one at home. How old is she now?
Oh, she is 19 months and she's acting like a 2.5-year-old.
Well, I have to
Yeah.
say, I have to take my hat off to you, because not only are you guys doing all this incredible work at the winery and, you know, trying to do it all as a family run show, but you're doing that as a brand new mom too, which is crazy. So good for you. And I applaud you for that, because it's not an easy endeavor at all.
That is very sweet. Yeah, I know sometimes people say, when do you work? I'm like, well, like 4:30 in the morning till 7, and then I'm parenting, and then, but you know, with the restrictions kind of lightening up a bit too, I definitely have more help now in the winery, and that's a huge relief. But I've always someone who I thought, I want us to have a family, but I also want to work, and I want it to be working on something that I really love, and that is this. And so no matter how tired I am at the end of the day, it is super rewarding at the same time. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate getting the chance to sit and have a good chat with you. And I'm curious, I know I've asked all of my other guests this. So what is in Daiya's glass? What are you drinking these days?
Oh, non-origin.
Non-origin. But BC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So your favorite
BC.
BC wine, or what you're into drinking when you're not drinking origin wine?
Great question. So I have this thing where I definitely, I drink more red wine than white on average. But there's that fine time in like the happy hour part of the day when it's hot outside and you can't quite move to red wine, and you are ready to switch over to something else. So we actually, in the first year, we made an orange wine made out of Gewürztraminer, which I'd love to do again, but we haven't at this point. We don't have any, but there's a new winery called Plot Wines. They're actually located in Caledon, so Plot, and they made a beautiful orange wine out of Gewürztraminer. I just tried it the other day, and to me, it's the kind of wine where it's refreshing, but it doesn't need to be cold. Like, it could just be in between a cold red and a warmer, or a cold white and a warmer red, So it's a good transition wine. It's a good happy hour wine. And they picked all their berries off their stems for it, and let it soak. It's this beautiful, beautiful orange citrus. So it's a great in between your red and your white, and that's what I would suggest right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. That's great. I'm going to actually put a link to all of my winemaker suggestions that
Nice.
So we can give some press to some other great BC wines and wineries that we maybe haven't had a chance to talk to yet. So
perfect.
Wonderful. Well, you guys take care over there. Hopefully I'll get out to see you real soon. And like I say, thank you for sitting down with me. And I wish you guys all the best in this brand new season. And now that things are opening up, I hope it continues to go well for you.
You too. Talk to you soon.
Take care, Daiya. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Now, I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question for a future guest or a comment, please put it in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and the big red subscribe button right down below. Thanks for joining us today on the BC Wine Show. And until next time, stay well, be kind, and enjoy responsibly.